As I mentioned, the first part is going to be a presentation. It's going to be about 15 odd minutes. And the second part will be an interactive workshop using my mirror board. And if at any all you have questions, as I said, I won't be able to see anything as I'm going through. I'd like to get through the presentation and the interactive session. So please feel free to put things in the chat, and we have a Q&A at the end, so we'll go through them then. If you don't mind, that would be appreciated. So why vulnerability? Vulnerability is a catalyst for change. Without it, no real change can happen. To enable people to open themselves up to the possibility of attack, for taking risks, and to foster a culture where everyone feels safe enough to be themselves. Sorry, lost my mouse there a minute to be able to change the slide. There we go. This evening's talk is about how we as leaders, no matter what you are, whether you're a Scrum Master, a tech lead, a head of an organisation, a line manager, whatever that is, we as leaders can foster an environment that allows individuals the courage to open themselves up to the possibility of uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. Let's take a second to think about that statement. To be able to foster a culture of vulnerability as a leader, you need to enable all of those around you to feel they can be emotionally exposed without any form of fear. That's a really big ask, especially in the workplace. It's the most threatening of all environments for many of us. And those of us who in the past have taken risks and made ourselves vulnerable, often we have been taken advantage of, ridiculed, sometimes completely ignored, or just lost disrespect from other people. So you really do need to make sure that if you're having a culture where you're expecting people to be themselves and to be vulnerable, that you need to make them feel safe to do so. If you play a part in leading an organisation, team, department, or just an individual, the responsibility to foster this environment starts with you. And it's quite exciting because it means that you can actually make impactful change and show other people that change is possible. Organisations as a whole have focused more on putting the onus on teams to become psychologically safe and open themselves up to risk without actually addressing an organisation's culture as a whole. The actual impact of fostering an environment in vulnerability means you can increase authentic human connection by allowing people to be their true selves rather than trying to project an image of a perfect self. Those who are more engaged are proven to be more productive, less likely to have accidents or make mistakes. And it allows you to be curious, explore ideas, increase risk-taking, and if you feel you can, which naturally cultivates a growth mindset over a fixed one. If you feel you can be vulnerable, then you have less fear. So feel safe to take responsibility, accountability, and ownership yourself. Trust is built between you as a leader and all those who work with you and promote the same in others. And most importantly in all, it makes happy people. When happier, you're less prone to illness, stress, anxiety. You have a higher self-worth, less self-doubt. It reduces isolation, increases a sense of belonging. Not only that, you take a good mood home with you, so it improves your home life, which in turn can also benefit a wider community. And that also your employees are most likely to stay with your organisation. So how do we increase vulnerability as leaders? If you want individuals to take personal risks and embrace the culture of vulnerability, then we have to model those behaviours first. And these behaviours, what are they that we should be emulating? Well, there's some key ones that you can definitely focus on to help you achieve this. This will help you build trust, respect, and loyalty, as well as allowing you to be your authentic self. Make connections, get to know the people you work with, find out about their families, their passions, have a joke, Actually make sure that you are treating people like humans and getting to know them. Take responsibility. Be that first person to admit when you're wrong and own your own problems. Don't blame others. This allows you to take control of any form of situation, and then you can invite others to offer ideas on how to move forward with them. Saying sorry is an incredibly powerful tool. Allowing those to take risks by forgiving them when something doesn't go to plan. Then allow space to analyse what's happened and to learn from it. And as well as that, make sure you're actually including people. You have a wealth of talent, knowledge and expertise in your team and organisations. Include them in actually finding the solutions and in decision making from the start. Inspiration. If you have a clear vision and you can get those around you to create it, it's proven that no matter those who are, it's proven that those who know why they're doing something will actually put more effort into achieving it. Kindness is incredibly overlooked, and I've actually, at the end of my notes, added a link to a site called Random Acts of Kindness, which has a workbook about how you can build kindness within your organisation. Something as small as a thank you, a note of encouragement, cakes brought, or just taking the time to listen to somebody will build that respect, trust and self-worth in those who have actually experienced kindness. Whether you understand something or you have something going on at home, ask for help. If you've got too much on, it's not a weakness to ask support, it shows strength. And even though you might not want to share the full details of why you need help right now, people understand if you just say to them, look, I could just really do with some support right now, and this is how you can help me. They appreciate that. You don't have to give out loads of personal details. And being curious. It's really important, especially if you're looking to foster creativity, is instead of pointing fingers and looking for blame, that you actually ask open-ended questions, look for learning to take forward. Just be really curious about how you've got to this stage and how you can move forward together. Call out unwanted behaviours. So you see a wrong, you see somebody being hurtful, rude, showing biases. It doesn't mean that you call out if you don't agree with somebody else's opinions or ideas, but if you see something that's going to fundamentally damage the culture you're championing, you'll need to tackle that. However, how you do this can be a topic in itself, and what approach you take needs to be discussed with HR as well as your teams, and it needs to be built into your organisation as well as your team agreements. A conflicts of ideas, as we've just mentioned, for Anvi's book, is actually really positive when everybody feels safe to debate, knowing they are working together to solve a problem. Allow the word no. There's a real pressure out there for people to say yes to everything that's asked of them. However, it's incredibly important to realise every time you expect somebody to say yes to something, they've got to say no to something else. So allow people to say no. And if something is that important, work with them to reprioritise and share the load. There are many ways of saying no without directly just saying no. And I've also added a blog link at the end of my references that actually shares different approaches that you can actually use when saying no to something. And last but not least, self-awareness. Be aware of your own emotional triggers. If you feel yourself getting frustrated, defensive, or being passive-aggressive, then it's okay to say you need a pause or suggest one if you think that will help somebody else. You can always arrange to come back together again when everyone's had a time to breathe and think about the scenario and approach it from a different angle. We can't be our best selves all of the time. So the importance of taking responsibility, saying sorry, realigning the conversation to get everybody back into a safe place to be able to continue from where you left off and not damage any of the safety you may have already put in place. So what isn't vulnerability? People can be comfortable with being open, disclosing a lot of personal information, but not be good at being vulnerable. You need boundaries, as sharing experiences, emotions, or opinions without boundaries can create a culture of malice. Openness can be positive, but if you're not just using it to vent, forcing your opinions on others, or using it to distract from something else, then it can have the complete opposite effect. Vulnerability only happens if you're being totally genuine, because people know if you're manipulating them, and it can ruin all trust and respect they have for you. Being intentional with vulnerability. Have a reason to be vulnerable. Introverts are great at this, as they listen, take everything in before responding. And when they choose a moment to be vulnerable, it can be very powerful. Extroverts, like myself, are very good at being open and sharing loads of details of their lives. However, actually being truly vulnerable can be a lot more difficult. What you need to ask yourself is, are you being open or are you being vulnerable, and why you are doing it? So that's the end of part one, which is my talk about vulnerability. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to add them in the chat, and we'll have a chance to open them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get out of my presentation. I'm going to make that smaller. And I'm going to ask everybody to go to the link I shared in the chat, and I will bring you all to me if you're already in. Bring to me, and I will drag you over to where I'm trying to go. Yes, I will try to, if it will. Come. Come over. My mouse is being a little... There we go. Can everybody see that clearly? And I'll just bring you to me again. Now, I'm not expecting you to click on anything of this so far at this stage. So what I'm going to do now is also give you another tool, which is controlling your environment. There's many techniques that you can actually use to make people around you feel a lot more comfortable about opening up and being vulnerable and sharing any of their thoughts and ideas without having a big group of people to start with. I like to use some things called liberating structures, and I'm going to use one with you this evening called appreciative interviews, which uses the 1-2-4 model. And this is definitely something that you can take away with you and use with your own teams or within your organisation. What I'm going to ask you to do now, hopefully you might have a pen and paper, but if you don't, just have a couple of minutes think, is I want you to have 2 minutes to think about a situation that was a success for you after you were actually vulnerable with somebody. Whether it was in a team environment or one-to-one, anything at all. If you have been brave enough to be vulnerable and it's worked out for you, have a think about that. What was the situation? How did you approach it? And what was the outcome? And how that made you feel? So I'll just give you 2 minutes now to have a think about that, and then I'll explain the next point of the exercise. And at this point, I will need to have control back to me as a host, Prem.
I've given the control to you already.
Oh, you have. Wonderful. Thank you very much. I couldn't see. Mainly because I have you all in a tiny box. Okay, so that's 2 minutes up. So hopefully everybody was able to think of a scenario where they were vulnerable and it panned out for them. I'm just trying to get my tools back because somehow this is gallery. Since sharing, I've lost all the tools. One sec. And that stuff has gone behind everything else. I can't seem to find my control panel anymore. Does anyone know what to do in this situation? Ah, there, it's come back for some reason. It was hidden away somewhere. Okay, so participants. Right, so what we're going to do now, once I can actually find, I can't see any of the ability to do breakout rooms, Prem.
It must be at the bottom.
The bottom controls completely disappeared. Everything's appeared at the top all of a sudden. So I have no idea what happened there.
Is it because that you are on full screen mode on any of the tools you are using?
Maybe so.
Melinda, are you on Mac or Windows?
I'm on Mac.
And you've clicked escape to come out of full screen mode? Or if you float the mouse at the very bottom, it should have the pop-up for all the icons.
It could be useful to stop sharing your screen, Melinda.
Oh, yes, it might be. Thank you.
And then you get the picture of all of us.
Oh, you're amazing. Thank you. I don't often use Zoom and I'm like, where is that? Okay.
Did you arrange this on purpose? A show of vulnerability, what happens, and it all came together then?
That's it. Take my time. We'll get there in the end. Sorry about that. So hopefully you'll manage to think about that. So what I'm going to do now is, how many have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, lovely. So we've got 6 people. That's fantastic. So that's basically 3 breakout rooms. And I'm going to send you in for a total of 10 minutes. What I'm going to ask you to do is, one of you will be a sharer. One of you will be an interviewer to start with. So go in the room, say hello, agree who's going to share first their success story, and they will share for 2 minutes. And I will send messages into the rooms as well to let you know about the timings. After that 2 minutes, I would like the interviewer to feedback what they heard and ask them questions to learn more about that scenario. Once you've done that, you'll then swap roles. So the interviewer becomes the sharer, etc. And then another 2 and a 3 minute interval. And then what I will do will bring you into a 4. And each one of you will share your partner's story in terms of what they learned from that. And you will just go around sharing that story each in a 4. And you will spend a total of 2 minutes each doing that. And then I'll send you another message in your 4 and say, you now have 5 minutes. And next to this, you will see a little board there in terms of success factors that help you be vulnerable. Throw any tickets you have on that board in terms of things that you believe helped you in the situation, in your stories of what you've learned from each other that helped you be vulnerable and helped it be a success, more to the point. So breakout rooms, let's get moving. I am going to do right, recreate, create. So we have 3 rooms for 6 people. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 open rooms. So say hello, and then the first person has 2 minutes to share, and then the second person has 3 minutes to share back what they've heard, but also ask more questions to understand more about the scenario. Here we go.
You're on mute.
Sorry, Melinda. If you create 3 rooms, there's a little box in there to say allocate automatically, and then randomly put pairs up with some people, or you've got to manually put them into us, then hit the breakout rooms.
Create 3 breakout rooms.
Yeah, and there should be something like auto. There should be a box to auto allocate.
Yeah, well, I'd done that. It didn't work the first time, but I've definitely got 3 rooms this time. Let's try again. Sorry, everyone. Go for it.
No problem.
Well, I'm joining meeting room 3, so that's a positive sign.
2.
Hello, Maru. How you doing?
Oh, sorry, I was having dinner.
Not to worry. You carry on having dinner. I've just literally sent people into breakout rooms. If you finish your dinner, let me know. I will give you an update to where we are at the moment, because I did the presentation first.
All right.
And then I can explain what's going on.
Thank you. So I'll just stay in the main room here.
Yeah, not to worry. Just finish your dinner, and then I'll talk to you in a sec. I'm just sending a couple of messages, and I'll explain what's happening.
Thank you. Thank
No
you.
worries. Don't worry, Maru, I'm just going to talk at you so you don't hear blankness for a while. You don't have to put your camera on. I'm happy with you eating away. Don't worry about that. So what I've just explained to people is we're talking about fostering an environment of vulnerability and the key things to focus on to allow you to do that as a leader, because obviously anybody leading teams and organisation, individuals, managers, etc., you know, you want to be able to have that culture, that environment where everybody feels open enough to be vulnerable and express their ideas and emotions to be able to get a positive outcome in any form of relationships. So there was a number of things I was just sharing on how to do that. And then what I've done from that is then send everybody who was on the call into a basically 1-2-4 approach, if you've ever done a liberating structure, to do an appreciative interview. So they thought of a success story, and then they are sharing that with their partner right now. That's my clock for that 2 minutes. And then what they're going to do now is interview their person back after they've heard their success story. And then I'm going to amalgamate them into a room of 4. So what I will do at that point, if that's okay with you, so you actually get to interact with this, is once I send people into a 4, which will be 8 minutes time, but I'll share a bit more with you. I've just got to make sure I don't miss my timings. So you can actually listen to everyone's success stories and then help them build up what those successes were and add them to the board. Now, I don't know if you can see the chat, but I did add a link to the Miro board. So if you can have a look, feel free.
No, I can't see it.
I will add it again.
Did you just add it now? Okay.
No.
But I'm curious, are you using the appreciative, I don't remember, I think it's appreciative interviews and liberating structures?
That's exactly what I'm using.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I decided that if we explored a negative thing, that could get a bit too personal, and also a bit too down in terms of a negative outcome. So what I'm trying to do is allow everybody to come up with success factors that allows for an environment of vulnerability, and then hopefully at the end of the session have some takeaways with them for that. So I've just put the Miro in there. If you join, I will bring you to me.
And I just sent the link.
Yeah, I've just put it in the chat.
Yeah, I just copied it and I've sent it to my laptop, so I can open it because I can do nothing on the phone.
Okay.
It's in a second, I'll be there.
It's all right. I have to write my next message. I've got to make sure I don't lose where I'm at.
Facilitator live.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's a big board.
Yes,
my laptop,
mainly because I did it as a presentation, and then just at the bit where I am. So if I bring you, actually feel free if you want to have a nose around, because I've been through the slides at the top. There's not many words because I told feel free to have a look around, and when you're ready, give me a shout. I've got 40 seconds. I'm
just curious, did you independently of the liberating structures, do you practice appreciative inquiry?
Oh, appreciate. I haven't for a while, but I have done that in the past.
Okay, all right. How does that work for you in corporate context? Before everybody comes back, did it work well for you? Did people respond well? Well,
luckily when we did it, I was in an environment where I had a lot of other sort of scrum masters and things like that. So everybody was open to exploring it. I'm just going to broadcast my next message.
No, I'll let you work. I'll go explore the Miro board.
Right, 2 minutes. All right, I've got to say 2 minutes for sharing. No worries. So tell me more about yourself, Maru, when you stopped eating.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. That's I said okay. I stopped eating when you sent me the board, so I can explore it. I will continue when everybody comes back. I'm a weird mix because I'm an agile strategist. That means what I do is strategist and architect. I do product strategy, organizational strategy, and change strategy related to Agile. That means many different things, because my background is actually in strategy itself, but I'm also a systemic coach. But nobody knows. I don't say that. I use an extremely wide amount of tools from coaching and facilitation, depending on the purpose, because I have to work a lot with leadership and managers.
Yes.
And they are very, how can I say, the nature of working with them, let me phrase it fairly, is different from people doing the actual work, who can see what they do. The further you are from where work really happens, the more challenging I find it, the more gap and distance there is to the Agile concepts.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I've been in that situation where I'm trying to, you've been brought in as a coach for organizations, and the first thing they say to you is, so all my teams over here, they're rubbish, they don't talk, they don't do this, delivering, blah 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 blah. And then the first thing you say to them is, well, I want you to change the culture. And I go, I can't just change the culture. You have to help change the culture. What culture do you want? And how are you going to help support that? And they just look at you as if to say, I've got to do it.
And it's really a syndrome, and you will get told the same if you fail. So a lot of the people I advise, who are themselves consultants or coaches, to coach them to be systemically aware of what they get involved in, because a lot of us are full of good intentions. And that's why I asked how useful appreciative inquiry was for you working with corporates, because a lot of the leadership and management who are not familiar with these things, it's a wide spectrum of reactions, from this is esoteric BS to it's not going to work. You got to be tough on my people. You got to show it to them.
And I'd say I tried to deliver like eating structures with organisation. Also got them to break down, especially from the whole workflow in terms of how, as an organisation, they communicate together. So to actually get them to break down each area, and then pointing themselves out. Oh, wait a minute, we've actually got no way of these people talking, or we've got no way of actually getting them to draw out where those links are needed to make the organization function better, and to build that collaboration and communication. It's very,
I call that the one of the concepts I use to explain this kind of dysfunction is the deployment of Agile syndrome. So when you have that perspective of, I'm just going to install it, just get it done by somebody, then you're going to run into problems from the beginning. But the problem is, as a coach or consultant like me coming in, if you start saying these negative things from the front, you might lose your contract very quickly.
Yes.
Well, anyway. So they're doing right now. They're doing 13, right? No, they're doing 12.
Yeah, we're doing 12 at the moment, and I'm about to finish the interview. So what I will do is I'm going to assign you to a room, and you can say, hello, sorry I didn't do this. I'm here to listen to all your stories, and then help you build your success factors, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. I like the references links slide. It's also going to explore this tomorrow.
Oh, great. Yeah, I've created the PDF to be sent out to everybody afterwards as well. So
thank you.
That's helpful. Right, 10 seconds, and then I'm going to attempt to not break Zoom and put everyone in pause. It's always the technology of this stuff is the scariness. Right, okay, stop that. So let me assign to room 2. I'm going to assign to room 1. And
I think I'm going in.
Brilliant. Just double clicking it. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
So I have no doubt that that experience was a bit jarring with the time limit that we had. Obviously, if you're doing this in your teams, you would give them more time, but obviously with the time of the workshop. But I'm hoping that this was a good example of how you can allow people to have a safer space to share what they need. And there seems to be a lot of stuff going up on that board. Oh, sorry. Terence, that's me. That's telling me that I've run out of 15 minutes, but hopefully you forgive me and we can carry on. Coming by. My technical issues made us overrun a few minutes. So how did people find that to start with?
I find it really hard.
Did you actually see any of my messages? I'm really hoping so.
How did we find the technical side of it, or how did we find the activity itself?
The activity itself, I'm hoping the activity was helped by the messages I sent and not hindered.
It was helpful, yes.
But how was it actually being in that scenario with somebody sharing your success story?
Well, when I was sharing and not receiving the my success story, I felt quite, what's what I'm looking for, empowered. It was quite sort of, it felt like it was a great story to share. And there, actually, I was just saying to Maya, it actually happened last week when we were in Manchester, that I had to talk to somebody about an issue I was having with a client. And I felt good sharing, to be honest with you.
And how did it feel as the interviewer to actually have that time to listen to somebody and then have a chance to dig into their story a bit more?
It was good, and also I was intrigued. I was actually starting thinking, what could I do? I've done to help Mayor out. It's that sort of visualizing, or you think about in the experiences when people have shown that vulnerability to yourself, and you saw yourself checking that you've done the right thing by them as well.
Fantastic. And looking at what's on the board right now, you've got a wealth of success factors that help you be vulnerable. Would anybody like to particularly expand on anything on there that really makes an impact with them? Does anyone feel safe enough to do that?
I will, if people don't want to talk. I've just talked for a little bit then. So one of the ways to take away, because being open and also being vulnerable at times, I found, is actually you do understand and realize that most human beings out there really do want to help you. It's only a small percentage who don't want to help you, or even worse, a small percentage again who actually want to take advantage of your vulnerability. And because of that small number of people really go into their shells and don't want to express their don't want to be open up and show their vulnerability. But actually, statistically, there's only a small percentage of people who would actually take advantage of somebody's vulnerability when they show it. There's a huge, I like to say a percentage, but I couldn't ratify what percentage. Probably in the 90s, or actually most people actually really, when they see somebody being vulnerable, they actually really want to help.
Thank you for sharing that. So what I'm going to ask you now is, I'm going to give you a chance, because I know we've run over, so Terence, shout at me when we can't do any more. I'm going to give people a chance to ask questions. And then what we actually have at the end, I have, a second number 13, actually number 40. Let me rename that number 40. So while we're having our questions and answer session, and I'm hoping if there's any questions that was written during the presentation that were collated, or at least we can see them somewhere, because at this moment in time, my thing has gone all over the place again. So I'd appreciate any help if there is any questions, Terence. But while people feel free to ask questions, there's not many of us on here, so don't worry too much about hands up. We'll work it out if anybody speaks over each other. And I'd also put on there 14. Is there any kind of takeaway from the discussion and also the workshop that we've had in terms of having those key factors to allowing vulnerability within the culture you have, and you being a leader and obviously emulating the behaviours that you want to emulate. If there's one key action you think that you can actually take away with you from the session, feel free to put it on the board, and if you're happy to share that. So does anyone have any questions?
Yeah.
Go for it, Jane.
I guess my question is, and I see this a lot, is how do we manage that vulnerability upwards to, so it's great being able to sort of set an example within a team where you're trying to foster that vulnerable and caring environment, but how do we kind of manage that upwards to try and get our organizational leaders to be more vulnerable? I don't know if anyone's got any experience of that, because I see a lot of professionals always being professional and not really want to admit when things are going wrong.
So I think Maru, as he came in a little late, we were having a little bit of discussion about how difficult it is sometimes to tackle leadership from above. I don't know if you've got anything that you want to add, Maru. But again, it comes down to having those courageous conversations. You know, when you walk into an organisation, and the first thing they say to you is, the culture here sucks, my teams aren't delivering, everybody's being guarded, I don't know what's going on, all this stuff. And then you have to say back to them, well, what is the culture that you want to see, and are you actually emulating that yourself? And most of the time they're like, am I supposed to? You know, as you say, you know, how do you get that? So it's having those small conversations. Actually, I've found in the past having workshops and trying to broker that whole subject and trying to actually see how their organisation fits together and what's missing in terms of alignment. But sometimes it's just those small conversations that help. I don't know if anyone else has like a quick miracle cure for this, because I don't think there is one. Gareth?
Yeah, just quick one for me is actually just sharing the stories. And so exercise I've done quite a few times. It's actually putting other people in other shoes, getting leadership actually to get working with the people who are actually going to doing the work and building that empathy up. And once they got a certain amount of empathy, see, then you can actually have stories about you know, to leadership about some of the problems they're causing, and you know, where people do feel vulnerable and why they feel vulnerable is. Obviously, you do your best not to sort of like name people, and you've got to take people on in confidence, but get them working alongside the team. They build that relationship and empathy up, and then you can have those conversations a lot more easier. Easier said than done, I know, but that's how it's working.
There is no easy answer. Trem.
I found that we like playing in a very and creating a very play-like environment, like creating a Kahoot quiz situation where the leaders themselves can see sometimes they are not getting it right in the answers. Like, yeah, this is just one example. So first of all, they have to see that sometimes our team members may know more than I do. And that creates an awareness mirror for themselves. And that begins the respect for the people in their team. And they begin to, even after that, they begin to appreciate, even after this, my people are respecting me as a leader. So it is okay for me to not know, and it is okay for me to go out and ask my team members, I do not know the answer, can you tell me the answer? So something like that. It is, we can theoretically talk to them. It is okay for you to not know. Okay for you to make mistakes. You can come out and role model yourself saying making more mistakes. And I can role model, and I can say I can constantly make mistakes and make jokes about that. But still doesn't work. It's still, and then when you create a situation that it kind of, they get the mirror themselves without, going like, I am showing you the mirror kind of thing. Instead, they get the mirror themselves when they see the situation that I probably know very, very less, whereas my team members know more. And that kind of begins the journey for them. One example, I used Kahoot. You can use several different examples like Agile Clinic, where you are creating a collaborative question and answer sessions. but yeah, you can go creatively with whatever way it will work there.
Oh, thank you, Prem. That's brilliant. I think Terence, I think you just beat Maru to your hand up there.
I was just going to give a quick thing that I've used recently, which was during what they classify as a post-mortem of an incident. And we got the leadership team there and said, as an icebreaker, can you tell us what your worst day at work has been when something has gone wrong and people have looked at you as either the person who's got the answer or has caused the issue? And it changed the way that the post-mortem went, because people started talking about the things that they'd personally been involved in. And we were asking, oh, do you remember what it felt like at the time? And sort of pulled on those threads. And one of the leaders said, yeah, my partner still talks about that day when I came home and I was, in bits. And it was like, it let people talk more and be more transparent about what had happened in the service incident.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's a wonderful story to share. Maru.
Sorry, I was looking for the unmute button. Obviously I'm biased, right? Everybody's biased, but my bias is from systemics, and so if you take the systemic broad lens about all of these things, normally through systemics you always get to the same root causes. If you dig deep enough, you'll always get to the same 3-4 root core elements. And here there is a foundational hypothesis around all this stuff, is that the intention of people involved in this is actually to do it in a sustainable and healthy way. If this is not provided, none of these tools, be it related to flow or to coaching or to inquiry or vulnerability, psychological safety, are really going to work. They're always going to be shaky and not working. And so my perspective on all of this is, with regard to the topic of leadership and management we were talking about earlier, is that there's so many prerequisites, and that's why most of these methods, like Agile Manifesto or like Scrum, they always have a very strong values element. These prerequisites relate to those values, and so it might sound always like just talk, but any practice like these appreciative interviews, any practice that helps create awareness around those values and strengthen them, can only be beneficial. However, I think if the organization, so the team or plus the leadership, really want that, they will have to be patient and see it in the long run, not as a quick fix or
The thing is, you're asking people to actually improve their emotional intelligence. Now, the good thing about emotional intelligence, it is learned. You can learn. I'm a very outgoing person. I'll quite happily talk to any stranger and their dog about what's going on in my life in general. But when you actually get into the nitty-gritty of things and actually having to hold back and think about consciously, well, I am going to be vulnerable now. I want to explain this, but I'm doing this because I'm trying to make everybody else, come on board with what we're trying to do together, create that environment of safety. It isn't, it's there to be used for the right time. You don't have to open yourself up to the world the whole time you're in work. Being your true self takes a long time, especially when I think actually the pandemic has helped, because we've had to bring people into our homes and the first few weeks, I think we were all terrified about the state of our backgrounds and our kids being there, or our dogs or our pets, and we were all on edge and everything. But eventually we all went, oh, sod it, and we're all in our our t-shirts and our tracky bottoms, wearing our slippers, whatever it is. You ended up feeling more comfortable inviting people into your lives because everybody had the same issue. They were empathizing, they had that humanity, they had different situations at home and they all understood. And I think the trick is, when we all come back into the office, is that we keep doing that. We don't suddenly put on our work armor again because we're in an office environment and go back to trying to be our perfect self, because you don't achieve anything that way, and all you do is go home being miserable. Maya, sorry Prem, I know you had your hand up first, but Maya hasn't had a chance to speak yet.
Thanks, Melinda. Just drawing on from what you and also Maru have already said, something that's really important, I think, is definitely the human side, the emotional intelligence side. We also talked in our pairs about a social setting, which is quite informal, versus the formal setting, and writing a really formal email and thinking, let's set up a Zoom so that we can do this, versus just quickly grabbing a drink or, water cooler chat, or if on a Zoom you have a moment to speak privately, and you can. And something else I think we need to really put emphasis on is, because you've mentioned you're an extrovert, whereas I'm an introvert. And I think we can learn from each other, because if we have enough leaders that are extroverted versus introverted, I think it allows everyone to have a voice ultimately. And there's a lot of learning there to show up as our true selves and still actually succeed.
That's fantastic, thank you. Prem, did you have something?
Yeah, okay. This was about the leaders, creating that vulnerability for leaders. This is not my own experience. This is from, what's her name? I've forgotten. The one who talks about psychological safety, Amy Edmondson. Amy, what she was saying is that go out, get the leaders to go out and own some characteristic of them or something that they need improving. They go and tell their team that this is the area I need improving. For example, time management. I am rubbish at my time management. Can you please help me improve my time management? Or I am rubbish at prioritizing. Can you help me prioritize your backlog or my backlog? Something like that. So this is like inviting participation of people. So the one thing that she mentions is that the team probably knows about it already. Even before the leader owns it, the team already knows about it. They may not say it, they may already know about it. The fact that leader goes and owns it themselves, it makes them authentic. It makes them authentic, and it creates a better relationship and better safe space between the team and the leader. And that kind of builds to, and then that makes the team members to come up with their vulnerabilities and be open about their vulnerabilities, and creates a whole lot of safe space.
I think there was a quote from the film Mr. Nice Guy. Now, I've not seen it all, but I've seen the quote a few times, that he basically says, people are attracted to those with rough edges. Basically, if you're not perfect and you're being yourself, and as you say, just being genuine and authentic, you attract people naturally, because people can just tell that you're trying to improve, even though you're struggling with something. I think the 80s have got a lot to blame about this, that whole culture of giant phones, big suits and everything, and especially, unfortunately, the differences between men and women, and obviously men, in a lot of cases, we've been brought up that, you've got to be strong, you've got to be right, you've got to be this, you can't show any weaknesses, and women, every time you've tried to be yourself, has gone, oh, it's just you, oh, you've got an emotion today, have you? We've all had that scenario where, we have different ways of thinking, we have different personalities, and if we embrace that in everybody and allow that to show, you get an amazing result. Most teams that I've worked with haven't been brilliantly technical or known everything that have been the greatest teams. They're the teams that have been together and willing to work through those problems, you know, come up with ideas, be themselves, and learn when they went wrong. And that's, as an organisation, is what you want to foster.
Mm.
Mel?
It's time. It's time. So I've got a slide here. I've already shared the PowerPoint with Prem to share with everybody. You know, feel free. If anybody actually wants this presentation, I have the full notes. You know, you want to use my Miro board, just ask. I'm happy to share these things. I didn't come up with these things. I have, you know, research like everybody else. You know, these are my ideas from everything. So obviously the things that worked well for me as well. But, you know, there's resources here. The link around emotional intelligence is very useful because it actually has a load of links on giving yourself an emotional intelligence test about where you are now, and also gives you tips in terms of how you can do that with your teams, etc. The 7 steps of creating kindness is a worksheet that allows us organisations to work out how to bring kindness in. And there's a couple of good blogs that I read while I was researching for this as well, and a couple of books. But actually, at the moment on Netflix, Brené Brown actually has, I found it today, I was listening to it while I was working. She does a talk around the call to courage. So if you've got Netflix, and again, TED Talks, her talk around vulnerability is on TED Talks. That's also very good. So, so reach out to me if you want any of my notes or this presentation. I'm happy to share. If you think sharing something like this with your team or organisation, you know, go for it. Why recreate the wheel? So thank you very much for your time this evening. I very much enjoyed it.
Well, where's the best place for people to reach out to you? Is it LinkedIn?
Yes, LinkedIn. I am Melinda Marsh. There's only I'm always at the top of the list. I'm not the only Melinda Marsh in the country. There's actually one in London. Although she's got married, then her name won't be Marsh anymore. But generally in the UK, I am the only Melinda Marsh that you can find on LinkedIn. So I'm not hard to find.
Excellent. Thank you. And so, as always in these scenarios, I'm going to ask everyone to come off mute, if possible, please. And just to give Mel a round of applause for an interesting talk and interactive presentation. Thank you very much, Mel.
Thank you, Mel.
And I've lost my, oh, there it is. It's gone over it. The controls keep moving. Stop sharing. I want to stop sharing. There we go. Lovely.
Oh. Yeah. So, again, thank you. I will try and share my screen.